is Sherman Crockett, and I am the president of Forgive Your Father Ministries, a ministry that is dedicated to bringing healing and restoration to millions of people who have been wounded, devastated, alienated by and from their fathers. I've written a book called Cover Your Father's Nakedness, Forgiving the Father Who Forsook You. It took me about 3 years to write the book, and it was published in April of 2007. I want to talk to you today about why I wrote the book. And then after I talk to you about why I wrote it, I want to spend time teaching the book to you. I wrote the book because there are millions of children who are alienated from their fathers. In many cases, the father is not there. He's physically absent. In many cases, the father is physically present, but he's emotionally absent. And then in many cases, there are fathers who are physically absent, but never get in touch with their children. And so they're physically absent, emotionally absent, etc. So we have about 3 possible scenarios. I wrote the book because as a teacher, I see children every day, children that I teach, and I've been teaching a little bit over 20 years. I see children every day who are so filled with anger, so filled with angst, so filled with frustration, in many cases rage. And they often vent that rage and anger toward me and toward other teachers and administrators in public and private schools. But if you look beneath the surface, you'll see that these children are not really angry with us as teachers and administrators, etc. They're really angry in many cases, many cases, they're really angry with their father who has deserted them, who has alienated himself from them for whatever reason. And so seeing this problem as it exists, the Lord blessed me. He inspired me to both preach a sermon that talks about this problem and then to write a book that is based upon the sermon. The name of the sermon was Cover Your Father's Nakedness. It was taken from Genesis chapter 9, where after the flood, Noah planted a vineyard and drank some of the wine from the vineyard, and he himself became uncovered. And as he became uncovered, one of his 3 sons were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, one of his 3 sons, whose name was Ham, saw Noah in his tent, saw him in his nakedness, and began to laugh at him, began to mock him. Ham went and told the other 2 sons, and they, instead of mocking their father, they took a blanket, walked into the tent backwards, and covered their father's nakedness. In other words, they covered his fault, his transgression, his drunkenness. They didn't excuse it, but they covered it with reverence, with love, with forgiveness, with reconciliation. And then if you read in the scripture, it tells us that when Noah awoke from his drunkenness, that he placed a curse upon Ham and upon his descendants. Actually, he placed the curse upon Canaan, who was Ham's son. And then if you read further in the Bible, we'll see that the Canaanites indeed were a very wayward, wicked people. And so from that passage, which is in Genesis chapter 9, but the key verse is in verse 23, from that passage, the Lord blessed me to write the book, Cover Your Father's Nakedness, Forgiving the Father Who Forsook You. And as I said earlier, it took about 3 years to write the book. And the Lord has blessed me to be able to talk about the book to different churches and civic groups, etc. And I want to say this right now, that if you need me to speak to your church or civic organization or fraternity or sorority, college, university, etc., please feel free to contact me at forgiveyourfather.net, forgiveyourfather.net. If you want to see any of the sermons that I've preached that relate to this book, you can listen to those sermons on www.youtube.com/Big Sherm, BIGSHERM, M as in ministry, 7. That's YouTube, www.youtube.com/Big Sherm 7. And so before I delve into teaching the book, I again want to talk about why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because, as I said, as a teacher, I've witnessed many children who are angry and frustrated, and this anger is just, in many cases, at a rage proportion. And I usually try not to take it personally, and it's very difficult to not do so. But on a certain level, again, as I said, when I look beneath the surface, I can see that, and others can see that these children are angry with their father. I even had one teacher tell me that she was teaching about the Holocaust, and she had some children say to her, "I sure wish that somebody would put my father in the oven like Nazi Germany did to the Jews." Let me say that again, in case you didn't hear me. I know a teacher who is a social studies teacher, and she was teaching one time about the Nazis in World War II, Nazi Germany, their imprisonment and extermination of the Jews. And she said some children said to her, "I sure wish somebody would put my father in one of those ovens like Hitler did to the Jews." Now, if that's not anger, if that's not frustration, if that's not angst, then I don't know what is. And so we've got these millions of children around the world, not just in the United States. We've got these millions of children around the world who are so angry with their father. In many cases with their mother also. But here we're concentrating on the father, because it is normally the father who deserts the family. It is normally the father who is alienated from the family by his choice, or by the choice, a mutual decision that the parents have made. It is normally the father who is absent, especially in African American culture, but in all cultures. It is the father who is absent. It is the father who the children often don't know. It is the father who, as one of my interviewees told me when I was writing the book, I had an interviewee say to me that my father is nothing to me but a sperm donor. My father is nothing to me but a sperm donor. So it is the father who has created these feelings of frustration and anger, angst and rage in millions and millions of children. It is not the will of God that fathers not be in the home, because it creates all kinds of problems. It creates the anger that I'm talking about. It creates economic hardship. Obviously, two incomes are better than one. And so when the father is gone, then that helps create, as I learned when I did my research, and as I also knew from common experience that we see every day, the father's absence creates economic hardship. That's why people in cultures such as African American cultures, where the father is predominantly absent, the people in that culture generally are on the lower rung socially and economically, because the father is gone, and so his income is gone. And so if the mother is there and she's working 2 or 3 jobs or 2 jobs or 1 job trying to make ends meet, often her 1 job or 2 jobs or 3 jobs often cannot make up the difference from the father being absent. And so I'm going to talk to you again in a few minutes about the introduction to the book, and then I'm going to go through the 9 chapters of the book. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to ask you to consider the tapes, the sermons on youtube.com/Big Sherm, and then I'm going to also talk about the book. It has 9 chapters, and so it's going to take a while to get through it. I'll talk to you again in a few minutes. God bless you. Have a good day.